All right, this one's going to be a longer video, going to do a whole bunch of topics in one. Sam Howell, should the Jets go after him as a backup quarterback? Sauce Gardner recruiting some free agents for the New York Jets. Jamal Adams, could he be coming back to New York? Breece Hall having a weird run-in with a fan at the airport. And then Mike Evans and Brandon Aiyuk, should the Jets be going after one of those wide receivers?
Jets, Jets, Jets!
The first story we're going to get into today is Sam Howell, and should the New York Jets bring him in as quarterback 2 behind Aaron Rodgers? This coming by way of Connor Hughes, beat reporter for the New York Jets. I love the idea of this, assuming he's available. The Commanders could easily keep him as a backup. It's not like this is a Sam Darnold, Justin Fields situation. If available, though, I'd prioritize him over anyone else. Howell proved this year he can play. There are flaws to his game, but none where the season is lost if he has the ability to play, or if he has to come in and play. He's also cheaper. Howell would have a cap hit under $1 million each of the next 2 years. That matters to Woody Johnson and the New York Jets. There are those in the Jets building who believe he can play too. Maybe 2 years learning behind Rodgers really unlocks his potential, and he ends up being Aaron Rodgers' replacement. He did throw for 3,946 yards and 21 touchdowns on a terrible Commanders team. The key will simply be compensation. The Jets should do this if all it takes is a pick on the third day of the draft. Howell is just as good of an insurance policy as Gardner Minshew or Jacoby Brissett. So it's interesting. It's a quarterback that I hadn't really considered just because he's so young, and I would have figured the Commanders would want to hold on to him anyway, but it's something worth exploring. Now, as far as his statistics go, he had, as Connor Hughes mentioned, nearly 4,000 yards this past season. He had 21 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. So pretty high upside when you compare it to, his other buddy, Zach Wilson, which we'll do in just a second here. As far as his contract goes, Connor Hughes does mention he'd be under $1 million each of the next 2 years. Pretty close to that. In total, will be just over $1 million for 2025, but splitting hairs there. Very cheap contract for a Jets team that has spent a lot of money and didn't go after a backup quarterback this past season due to financial restraints, whether that be draft compensation-wise or like actual money financial-wise. We know Aaron Rodgers did not have the insurance taken out on his contract by Woody Johnson, so Woody Johnson did not gain back the $20 million he could have had towards the end of, once he went down with the injury. Now, as far as his comparison, we're talking Zach Wilson, and how does he compare in terms of the backup play that we saw last year? Obviously, you can see the stats back and forth. Not super great, from our quarterback, number 2 overall pick. When you consider that Howell was a 5th-round pick, the difference is pretty jarring here. Now, as far as that goes, is he actually an upgrade over Zach Wilson? And would you want to bring him in a pressure situation where you need to possibly win? So this is under pressure, according to Michael Nania, the highest percentage of pressured dropbacks converted to sacks. Bryce Young, 24.5% of the time he dropped back under pressure, he was sacked. That was the worst in the NFL. Zach Wilson followed that up with a 24.3%, and Sam Howell right behind Zach Wilson at 23.5%. Now, as far as passer rating when throwing under pressure, Mac Jones led the way, then Bryce Young, then Sam Howell in 3rd. Zach Wilson was actually better at throwing under pressure than Sam Howell. Now, maybe if you have fixed the offensive line, you're saying this is not that bad of an issue because clearly Howell has played better when there is no pressure than maybe Zach Wilson has played in his time here. I'm not so sure. That's not necessarily where I would want to go with backup quarterback. When I'm thinking backup quarterback for Aaron Rodgers, my immediate thought is I want someone to hold the ship down and be able to take us where we got to go in the event Rodgers goes down. And whether that's just win a game or 2 or 3 or whatever it is, I would like someone that's consistently won in this league, or at least, provides a high level floor. I feel like Howell's floor is pretty low. Not to mention, he did get pulled against the New York Jets in favor of Jacoby Brissett, which is honestly the player that I would prefer the Jets wind up bringing in. This is from DJ Reed, assuming, or he saw the retweet or quote tweet from Dov Kleinman, says, Brissett, cough, cough. Obviously, Brissett came in relief for Howell this past year. And when you look at the stats just between the two of them, 10 of 13, 100 yards, and 1 touchdown versus this Jets defense compared to 6 of 22 with 56 yards and 2 interceptions, I can understand why the defensive guys may want to go with someone like Jacoby Brissett. And that's where I fall. I would prefer Brissett to Howell in this instance. I think Brissett, you're probably not, I don't think you have to trade for him either. He's a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. And then with Howell, are you giving up, what, a 4th round pick? I wouldn't go any higher than a 4th round pick because I'm expecting that 3rd round pick to at least be a significant portion or significant impact on this team for this year. So, man, I don't know. I would say I'd roll with the players here. Now, as far as trade compensation goes, you could see the Jets have 1st round pick, 3rd round pick, 4th round pick via Denver and the trade with Jacob Martin. Our own 4th round pick. We don't have a 5th round pick, and then we have a 6th round pick. And then I think the Jets are supposed to have 3 7th round picks through comp picks is what Tankathon is projecting us to do. So when I'm looking at these draft picks, does it make sense for the Commanders to give up Howell? Well, it doesn't make sense for the Jets to give up the 1st or the 3rd round pick because you're hoping you're not going to have to use Howell at all next year. So use those 2 picks for advancing your objective for this season. Then you talk about a 4th round pick. 4th round pick is where I think most Jet fans would have penciled in, backup quarterback, like a big swing for a quarterback, something like that in the draft, where you're hoping that maybe there's some high upside there, like a Jordan Travis, maybe a Pratt from Tulane, someone along those lines. For me, I feel like the Commanders, if they're going to get a 4th round pick for Sam Howell, why would you trade him when you could potentially have him grooming Drake May, who was his roommate at UNC? I feel like he's more likely, Howell that is, to stay as a Commander as a high-end backup for them than he is to get traded for a mid-round pick when they're just going to have to try and replace him anyway with, potentially a mid-round pick quarterback. Why roll the dice when you don't have to? So for me, I think I'm probably okay with Howell if we get him as a backup quarterback. I would prefer Brissett, but I don't know if he's necessarily a huge upgrade for the type of play we may want to see if Aaron Rodgers goes down. Now, ceiling-wise, he's got a really high ceiling. I do really like that. And hopefully Rodgers is playing 2 more years, and then you'd have to, I guess make a decision on Howell at that point because he's only got the 2 years left on his deal. Guys, let me know your thoughts of Sam Howell. Do you want the Jets to go after him as a backup option? Is there another player you prefer as a backup option? Let me know in the comment section down below. The next topic that I want to hop into is Sauce Gardner on the recruiting trail. Sauce Gardner, as he calls himself, the GM hat when he puts that on. He got Aaron Rodgers here this past year. I want to talk about this a little bit right now. Now, I say he got him here. He's one of the reasons. Obviously, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Joe Douglas, Woody Johnson, the whole contingent went out there, got Aaron Rodgers. But Sauce is doing a little bit of recruiting for us Jet fans. Because look, I'll be honest, I'm not super confident that players are going to want to pay the high taxes. I'm not confident they're going to want to play on MetLife's turf. I'm not confident that they want to go into a season with a head coach and a GM, both potentially in a lame duck season. So when our young players are getting us a little bit more excitement, a little bit more hype for this team, I very much like that. This coming up because Sauce says, Sauce is finally back. For y'all that don't know, that's my recruiting name. He goes in and says, I'm not an official GM. I am a freelance GM that works from home. I'm just biased when it comes to the New York Jets. This guy sounds like he should have a YouTube channel where he talks about the Jets all the time. Maybe you call it Jets Talk 24/7 or something along those lines. I'm a GM that sits at home and has an incredibly hard bias towards our New York Jets as well. So I understand where he's coming from here. I love it. I love the mock offseason stuff. Now, as far as his philosophies as a GM, Sauce Gardner says, I know a lot of y'all are skeptical about how Sauce recruits. First, I start off by getting an elite quarterback. He got that in Aaron Rodgers. Then I get the wide receivers that I know could win against me or win me a 7-on-7 tournament. So he's talking about guys in the past, Mike Evans, Aiyuk, T. Higgins, Ridley, all these names have kind of come up. Then I get an offensive line to protect my elite quarterback so he can throw it to him. Then I move on. So you could argue a little bit. Maybe you want to get the offensive line fixed first, then the wide receivers, whatever it is. I think we're all on the same page. Offensive line, wide receivers, got to happen this offseason. Sauce goes on. He says, Mike Evans. Oh, well, I guess NFL Rumor says, Tampa Bay Buccaneers Mike Evans reportedly watching what team does with Baker Mayfield before committing to re-sign with the Buccaneers. Sauce says, or is he? ... Never mind. So it seems like Sauce knows something that we may not know. Remember, Mike Evans spent at least a little bit of time with the New York Jets in training camp this past year because they did the joint practices at Florham Park with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when Mike Evans called Quentin Williams fat. So something to keep an eye on. Sauce goes on to say, you know what I'm talking about, Mike Evans. Very cryptic, subliminal, whatever type of tweet. So maybe there's something going on with Mike Evans and Sauce knows something about it, or he's just yanking our chain, just getting everyone all fired up about what could potentially go on. Then his thoughts on Brandon Aiyuk. Emmanuel H.O. says, Brandon Aiyuk is a beast, but only had 3 catches versus the Packers and 3 catches versus the Lions. So why give the eyes emoji now when you have 3 catches in the Super Bowl? Sauce says, Aiyuk is one wide receiver I see who gets open the majority of the game, but doesn't get the ball thrown to him. And he can win in contested situations. So even if he's not wide open, he should get opportunities to make a play on the ball instead of throwing away. That's sort of how we feel about Garrett Wilson on our side of things, right? Like, obviously, if Garrett Wilson's one-on-one, you trust him to be a better athlete, a better player than whoever it is that's against him. So you throw the ball up and you let your guy go up and make a play. That's basically what Sauce Gardner is saying here. So he apparently wants Brandon Aiyuk here, and we'll get into the Aiyuk topic a little bit later on into the show. But I love that the players that Sauce is identifying right now are players that I would very much like the New York Jets to go after. Now, we recently just talked about Sam Howell. Someone asked Liz Sauce, as an all-pro GM, what is your opinion on Sam Howell as a backup option for Aaron Rodgers? Honestly, it doesn't matter because Aaron is about to do something special this year that shocks the world in a great way. Oh, and comeback player of the year. I would have to imagine Aaron Rodgers is going to be looked at as the favorite for comeback player of the year. Now, you can also argue Watson, Burrow, Herbert, something along those lines. But the fact that Rodgers missed an entire season with the Achilles and the way it happened on national TV, I think it's probably a pretty safe bet that that's going to be maybe where a lot of heads are going to be. So, guys, let me know. Sauce Gardner, recruiting for our New York Jets. Is there a player that he's talked about that you specifically want the New York Jets to target? Is there maybe a problem with our players going out and playing the GM role? I've heard some people say that. I feel like that's probably a little bit more old man yells at clouds type thing. But let me know your thoughts. Sauce Gardner, recruiting for the New York Jets. The next topic I want to get into is one I never thought was actually going to come up, and that is the thought of Jamal Adams possibly returning to the New York Jets. The cornerback is expected to be cut for salary cap purposes in the coming weeks here. Now, where did this come up? Well, a whole bunch of stuff has been posted. He made an Instagram post with a whole bunch of photos of him in Seahawks gear and in Jets gear, which sparked a whole lot of stuff, along with comments under those pictures. We miss you, Prez. To which Jamal responds, run it back, Lucas. Meaning he wants to come back to the New York Jets. And then should have never left was a comment. And he says, I didn't want to play for my head coach. The head coach at the time was Adam Gase, but the GM that was there was Joe Douglas. So when I'm thinking about, does this even make sense for the New York Jets? We have not prioritized safety in a very high capacity. Jordan Whitehead has been our most significant investment, along with a third-round pick spent on Ashton Davis. But aside from that, we traded away Jamal Adams. We got rid of Marcus May after franchise tagging him for 1 season and never really, addressed it in any expensive capacity, if you will. So Jamal Adams, I don't know if he's necessarily a fit for the New York Jets at this point in time. Not to mention, he thrives off the blitz, and the Jets don't really blitz at all at this point in time. As far as his statistics go, you can see just where he went after leaving the Jets. He was having all-pro after all-pro season, and then only had, the season he left the Jets to go to Seattle, he wound up breaking the all-time sack record for a safety, which, good for him. You're basically playing a different position, so I don't know if I would be calling it breaking the record for a safety as much as it, whatever. But basically has not done a whole lot the last few years, has been injured, has missed a bunch of time, and still doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of interceptions, which has always been a knock on Jamal during his time here. Do we want Jamal Adams? Well, how can you forget his cigar smoking? As soon as he winds up getting traded away from Seattle, you see the one on the bottom, he's dancing and grooving and everything. And then the same year, he lights a cigar backwards. This guy's such a jackwagon. I'm so done with Jamal and all this fake leadership type stuff and all the rah-rah crap. We finally got a lot of that out of the locker room, and I'm not a big Jamal fan at this point, which is weird because I was a huge Jamal fan when he was actually here up until the trade deadline when he was not traded initially. And then let's not forget, he also had a spat with our beat reporter, 𝐀𝐟𝐼𝐿 Hughes. 𝐀𝐿 Hughes took a shot at Jamal saying, yikes, after he got toasted for a touchdown. Jamal posts a picture of 𝐀𝐿 Hughes and his wife and says, yikes, this dude can go kick rocks. I don't need any soft players. I'm already kind of irked with some of the stuff that goes on to social media with some of our players that are actually good players, let alone, a malcontent safety who does not play up to his contract. I'm sorry. I want nothing to do with Jamal Adams. If you want Jamal Adams here, you're high on hopium because it's not going to be like how it was the last time, and I don't think it's going to be something you want to add to this locker room. Guys, let me know your thoughts on Jamal Adams down below. Should the Jets consider going after him? Is it even an option? Would Joe Douglas consider doing this? Let me know in the comment section down below. The next story I want to hop into is Breece Hall getting confronted at an airport for his autograph. Breece Hall saved by Carl Banks in airport autograph altercation with furious fan, quote, "slap me." So if you guys haven't seen the video yet, it's weird. It's super awkward, super uncomfortable. So let's hop into it. I'll show you the video here.
I don't care. He ain't gonna come and he's gonna slap me. No, he said it was so be a man. Let's keep it going. Slap. We're not doing this. It's a federal crime if you get in a fight. He said he was slap. So guys slap. No, he said he's gonna slap. You won't be a pussy. Security. So something good too. You think you're a big man and tough? You're gonna slap me, slap. We'll go outside. That's all. See like you, Breece. Fucking out of here.
So I have no idea what gives people the absolute stones to confront athletes in all sorts of areas of life. Not even just athletes, just celebrities in general. They have their own personal lives. You don't have to be confronting them for autographs at any particular point in time. And kudos on Breece for not knocking this dude on his ass. Slap me, slap me. If Breece Hall slapped you, have you seen Breece's stiff arm? Get out of here, dude. You'd be planted 6 feet deep. Now, Breece did respond to this person. He says, "If you know me, you know I'll always show love. There's a time and a place for everything, but harassing me at baggage claim ain't the time or place. 100% thankful. Carl and my guy Joe were there to keep anything from happening." Breece, you are a stand-up cat. You're a good player, a great player. And this douchebag should not be confronted. Look, what is he trying to do? What is the thought process? Like, are you trying to get slapped to try and like do some type of lawsuit or something against Breece? This is so dumb. Absolutely dumb that this has to make any sort of like news or headlines or anything like that. As far as confronting athletes and celebrities out in public, if they're walking around you, hey, give them a wave, a nod. Maybe they'll take a picture with you. But if they're eating at dinner, at their table, or they're, traveling, trying to get out of here, leave them alone. Leave them alone. Go. There's time and place for everything. There's going to be people that complain like, oh, grown man asking for an autograph is kind of weird, which I don't think it's weird. I don't think it is. I think there's plenty of events that go on that have autograph signings and things of that nature where you're able to get that autograph. Because look, it's memorable. It's important. I would love to have a Breece Hall autograph. I got his cereal box sitting right next to me, and I got his uniform in the background right there. But at the same time, I don't really need a signature on it to be excited about Breece Hall and all that good stuff. Save it for the kids is what you'll hear. I don't know. Look, don't piss off people. Don't get them all fired up when they just want to live their lives too. And don't get mad when they say, hey, look, not right now. Find another time to get your autograph. Go buy one online. Is your autograph from the airport at Newark or wherever this was really going to be the little domino that ruined your whole day? I don't think so. Breece Hall, good job on you for acting how you acted. And I apologize that you have to deal with this sort of crap. Guys, let me know your thoughts on the whole autograph signature stuff down below in the comment section. The next topic we're going to hop into is Mike Evans, and he won't get franchise tagged by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers due to his 2023 cap number. Buccaneers wide receiver Mike Evans is projected to be franchise tagged, or is projected that his franchise tag will be worth $28.4 million instead of the regular $21.6 million, meaning he's not expected to get the franchise tag. Now, what Schefter is referring to here is the 120% escalation to the franchise tag, depending on what your contract was the year you're coming off of. And since Mike Evans had such a high cap number this past year, they're saying that he is already within the threshold that would have made him a higher paid player, or basically his salary would go down on the franchise tag. It's kind of goofy. But because of that, he gets 120% of that value, which winds up being that $28.4 million, which is a monster number for, I think, anyone to hit. As far as his grades, Mike Evans has been absolutely electric in terms of, 1,000-yard receptions for 10 straight years. This guy's going to cakewalk into the Hall of Fame. This past year had 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns with Baker Mayfield throwing him the ball. So if you think he might be able to do just as good, maybe a little bit better with Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson on the other side of him, at 6'5", Mike Evans is hands down the number one wide receiver I would love to be able to bring into the New York Jets. The size profile is absolutely enormous, and the guy's talented. Guy's talented as all hell. Now, as far as his contract demands go, this coming by way of his agent, Evans could command around $25 million annually. Hill is averaging $30 million. Davante Adams, who is in the same draft class as Evans in 2014, is averaging $28 million, while Cooper Kupp is making $26.7 million a year. Cooper Kupp's deal was initially what Evans and his agent, Derek Gilmore, were striving to match prior to the start of the regular season. Evans and general manager Jason Licht both indicated they'd like the receiver to stay in Tampa. It would mean everything for the franchise, ownership, all of us, Licht told ESPN of Evans spending his entire career with the Bucs. Mike and I, our relationship is still the same and has never changed, and we've got a mutual understanding of when we're going to begin talking. So obviously they were talking throughout the summer and the offseason, trying to figure out if they can get this contract off the ground and make them, settle everything down. Once the season started, Mike Evans was like, hey, I'm not talking contract anymore. We're going to figure this out in the offseason. Now it's going to get to a point where I think Mike Evans is at least going to test the open market here. And as far as contract demands go, he was talking about getting the Cooper Kupp deal. That's a 3-year, $80 million contract, which is like not out of the realm of possibility considering what some of these other players are getting paid. Davante Adams, who a lot of Jet fans want, is currently getting a massive contract by the Vegas Raiders. And Tyreek Hill, who's probably the best wide receiver in the game, getting $30 million. Mike Evans isn't that far behind either, or arguably just a different type of receiver than both those guys, and provides just as much upside given our red zone woes and his big frame that you could have. As far as cap space, these are the top teams that are looking, top teams in terms of salary cap allocation and what they're able to spend this offseason. Now the Jets sitting pretty low on this list. I didn't include the ones below us because I would figure, probably the Jets are about as far as you'd go down that list. Lots of teams that kind of pop up here. Now, as far as teams I could see going after Mike Evans, the first one, look, I'll say our Jets, because we have a very tight window in terms of winning. Aaron Rodgers, 2 years, probably 3 years at max is what you'd be looking to sign Mike Evans. I would love that. You could talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because obviously Mike Evans wants to potentially end his career in Tampa Bay. His kids are going to school down there. I think it would make a lot of sense. Tampa Bay obviously wants him back as well. You could look at the Carolina Panthers, who are a division rival for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, need a number one wide receiver but alongside Bryce Young. Would they be willing to overpay dramatically to help develop a pick that may not look so good right now because the owner wants to make sure it all works out after they reportedly passed on C.J. Stroud this past year for what the coaching staff, because the coaching staff wanted C.J. Stroud, owner wanted Bryce Young. Could they stir up a bunch of money there? They got a ton of salary cap space. Then you got the Kansas City Chiefs. This is an interesting one because they're clearly in need of a wide receiver one, and this would probably be his best shot along with the Jets at getting a Super Bowl if I had to think of one, just because their defense is so elite. But does it look the same after Chris Jones? Do they even have the money to bring in someone like Mike Evans and still maintain a Super Bowl caliber roster? I think that's going to be a little tough to ask. The next one you could talk about is the Chicago Bears. The Bears are rumored to want Marvin Harrison Jr. at the top of the draft, looking to add someone opposite DJ Moore, and they've got a ton of cap space to be able to facilitate this. This would be a really wild signing, especially if they wind up getting someone like Caleb Williams at the top of the draft. You trade away Justin Fields. Now maybe number 9 doesn't become a Romo Dunze or a Malik Neighbors, like a lot of people are sort of projecting the Bears to make that selection at number 9. Maybe it becomes an offensive lineman to help protect their quarterback that they just took at number 1 overall because they've solved wide receiver outside of that. Or the Bears become a hot trade down commodity if they want to move out of number 9 for a team that wants to leapfrog the Jets for an offensive tackle, or maybe leapfrog the Vikings or the Broncos or the Raiders, who might be looking for a quarterback at picks number 11, 12, and 13. And it might not even be, that they wouldn't trade down with the Jets. It just might be that the Bears, with all their draft capital they have, might be more willing to move down than the Jets would be on possibly missing, a top tackle target for us. And then the last team I would take a look at is the Houston Texans. They have some good wide receivers already, but getting a bona fide number one wide receiver in a non-income tax state on a massive contract when you have a ton of money and a rookie quarterback coming off offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, this would be a really interesting spot. And the pathway to the playoffs is not incredibly daunting. The Colts are an interesting team with a little bit of turmoil with the switch in head coach. You have the Jaguars, who are going to try and, bring back Josh Allen, bring back Calvin Ridley. They're going to lose some pieces, but I don't think you're necessarily sweating too hard over them after you just, won the division this past year. And then you have the Indianapolis Colts, who have a quarterback coming off of a season-ending injury. So this is really an interesting situation for Mike Evans. He could pick any one of these teams. Is he going to go for a team that maybe doesn't have the money to pay him right now, or maybe it would be a team that would be more willing to push money into the future, like the Jets or the Chiefs? Does he want to go with a high upside team like the Texans or the Bears? Or does he want to go for the all-out money and stay in Tampa Bay or go to Carolina? I think either one of those or any one of these 6 teams are really the ones that I've kind of penciled in as the teams to keep an eye on. You could also keep an eye on Washington maybe as well if they're taking a quarterback at the top of their draft. They got, I think, the most amount of salary cap space of any team. So that would be an interesting option potentially as well. Now, as far as Mike Evans, what does he think on the situation?
I would love to be back. I love Tampa Bay. Been here my whole career. The city has been great to me. The franchise has been unbelievable to me and my family, and I love this place. So we'll see.
Todd, do you cringe at all or allow yourself to even think of Mike Evans playing in another team's jersey?
I don't even think about it. I don't like to be asked about it. I don't want to know about it, and I hope the hell that does not happen.
So clearly, Mike Evans has an affinity for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's taken pay cuts in the past. Todd Bowles does not want to lose him. He prays to God that does not happen. Obviously, it's the GM that winds up making all those decisions. But you would have to think, with everything that has gone on with Mike Evans throughout the course of his career, where he stands at this point in his career, does he want to uproot his family? Does he want to leave the city that's treated him so well, that he's won a Super Bowl in? I get the feeling Mike Evans probably ends up back at Tampa Bay on a really nice deal, and they're going to stretch this money out pretty far to make it work for their guy. So I think Mike Evans probably not coming to the New York Jets. But guys, let me know, how much would you be willing for the New York Jets? How much would you be willing for the New York Jets to pay Mike Evans? How do you think it's possible that he ends up here? Do you think he ends up on another team? Let me know in the comments section down below. The final wide receiver that I want to take a look at is none other than Brandon Aiyuk, rumored to potentially want a trade. So should the Jets trade for Brandon Aiyuk? This coming because of what his brother and girlfriend have posted, as well as a post-game final day press conference at his locker where he was shedding a little bit of tears, didn't really know what was going on, where he was going to be. So this starts all off with his brother saying, or I guess not his brother, this is Brandon Aiyuk saying, "Don't forget what got you here." And then his brother posts, "Why does your all-pro 1,300-yard receiver have 3 catches in the Super Bowl?" He follows that up with, "This is the exact reason why we're leaving San Francisco. Thank you, 49ers, for drafting my brother. We are forever grateful. Back to Vegas." So I'm not exactly sure if he's talking back to Vegas as in Aiyuk would want to go back to Vegas, or if he's talking about like, hey, we're just, I'm going to go back to Vegas right now because it's just after the Super Bowl and all that good stuff. And then his girlfriend posts this to TikTok.
"This might be our last day. Not our last day. This might have been the last day we touched foot on Levi Stadium, me and Braylon, because we might not be out here next season."
So they may not be out here next season. This might be the last time they set foot out there for Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers. Now, this is something that we've heard kind of in the past from like Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel originally requested a trade a few off seasons ago, ended up getting a monster contract from the 49ers, but now you're in a situation where they've already paid Christian McCaffrey. They've already paid Deebo Samuel. What happens now? Is there enough money to go around for an additional wide receiver, or does he wind up getting moved? Now, as far as his career stats go, he has been electric and none better than this past year. He had 1,400, damn near 1,500 yards this past year with 8 touchdowns. This guy's been absolutely electric, especially with the ball in his hands. 70% reception completion percentage, meaning he's always getting open. And you heard Sauce Gardner talk about it. This guy is open more times than not, and he's just not getting the ball thrown his way. As far as potential trades that could happen, I would say I've got 2 trades for the New York Jets that you can possibly consider. Whether or not you want to do it is entirely another thing. The first one up, we could talk about. The Jets currently own the number 10 overall pick. The 49ers have the 31st overall pick. I would argue that the Chiefs at 32 would be willing to give up the 32nd overall pick for Brandon Aiyuk, considering the 49ers and the Chiefs have a little bit of a history with trades. They traded Frank Clark back a bunch of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Is that the right? I think that's the right math that I had in my head. So could this be another situation where they link up and they make another trade? If the Jets were to give up number 10, maybe they could take on the 49ers pick at 31. That would be a point difference on the value chart of about 700 points, or equivalent to the 26th overall pick in the first round. Now, in my opinion, the number 10 overall pick is far too valuable for the Jets to end up giving up. I would say I want to take our best offensive tackle on the board at number 10, because I don't think there's a way for the Jets to really solve offensive line in free agency anyway. So I'm not high on this particular option when it comes to a trade. One that I think a lot of fans might be rubbed the wrong way with, and I'm not sure I'm 100% on board with this one, but one that I think is a little bit more, I guess, appealing to me is potentially switching DJ Reed for Brandon Aiyuk. Both guys want new contracts, both in the final year of their respective contracts at this point. Neither team really wants to lose either one of these players. The Jets, obviously going for a Super Bowl, want to try and keep their secondary together for another year. DJ Reed is incredibly valuable to that. Now, the argument is going to be, if the offense can take a major step forward and the defense can take maybe a slight step back with the loss of DJ Reed, maybe this is the better net gain for the New York Jets than, retaining and either letting DJ Reed walk next year or having him, restructure a contract and pay him a whole lot of money. Now, the argument for letting Reed go is because of the Brandon Echols and Breece Hall arguments. Echols under contract for this upcoming season, Hall going to be a free agent, but maybe you retain one of those guys, because we saw during the Eagles game with Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed both out of that game that the Jets defense did not miss a beat. So you're telling me with Hall and Echols, maybe it makes sense to get rid of a high-priced, valuable asset in DJ Reed that would provide probably his highest trade value that you could possibly get. Once you sign him to a contract, it's no longer going to be as lucrative of a deal for the New York Jets. Could upgrading the wide receiver core be the best route? For me, DJ Reed, I don't want a draft pick for him. Unless you're giving me a first-round draft pick, it's not something that I'm really in the mood of considering. I don't think getting a second-round pick or a third-round pick or whatever it is for for DJ Reed is going to net us enough, impact this season to help us win a Super Bowl. I think DJ Reed's far more valuable to that sort of agenda. Where I get interested in it is with a player-for-player swap. So if you swap in Aiyuk, who's already a proven NFL commodity, there is no lottery ticket here. All you got to do is pay the guy. I would love the idea of making this trade in particular. And it's not because I don't like DJ Reed, it's because I think so highly of him. You have to give me someone that's deemed a first-round valuable asset at a premium position in order for me to even consider trading DJ Reed. So Brandon Aiyuk, potentially coming to the New York Jets via trade. DJ Reed already played with San Francisco with Robert Saleh during his time there. I could see him slotting back into a defense that's going to be run pretty similar to how the Jets are currently running their defense. So guys, let me know your thoughts. Brandon Aiyuk, trade potential for the New York Jets. Do you want the Jets to make a move? What do you think would have to be done to facilitate that type of trade? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for hitting the like and subscribe button on these videos. It goes a long way towards growing the channel. And then occasionally I get sponsors like this. So if you want to help support the sponsor of the channel, or maybe just get yourself some cool gear or some good discounts, you can click the link in the description down below. Today's sponsor, 𝐶𝐿 is going to give you 25% off your order using promo code JetsTalk. Link in the description down below. They've got gummies, THC syrup, THC seltzers. I just discovered these things. They are incredible. As someone who has been trying to cut down a little bit of their alcohol consumption and not, maybe feel as crummy the next day, this has been a godsend for me. Keep me nice and calm, cool, and collected, especially with all the hurdles that our Jets throw our way and all the headaches that we got to deal with as fans. So if you guys want to help support the channel, maybe get yourself a little bit of a discount as well. Support the sponsor of the channel, 𝐀𝐟𝐼R𝐤𝐸. Thank you so much for watching the show.